All right, everybody. We got Max here,
Hey.
not necessarily in the building via Zoom, but multi-platinum Sony recording artist, huge success. So very excited to talk to you, Max. How you doing?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm good. Are you just hanging out at home right now? I like your setup.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm at home. I just hanging out with my baby, and then got some interviews and drinking some coffee. You know, living that life. It's good.
Yeah, dude, that's a cool leopard print chair.
Yeah. My wife is very into Leopard. That's her. She and her mom are. We have full Leopard pajama sets. When we first met, before we had Edie, we had a Christmas where we had the full family had matching Leopard pajama sets. So the Leopard print is a fun part of the fan.
That's badass, dude. So you've been called a pop god by GQ, a top pop star to watch by Billboard, best new pop artist nomination from iHeartRadio. So huge success right now, billions of streams. But before we talk about all that, would you mind taking us all the way back to when Max was little and how did he get into music?
Yeah, man, let's bring it back. Let's do the theme, baby.
Yeah.
I grew up in New York, and I'd see buskers, Broadway shows. I was a big musical junkie as a kid, so I saw The Lion King, all that kind of stuff. And I would go home and I would reenact every show I saw on my living room table in my underwear. I was an only child, so I'd get the family together, and I'd make everybody wear the underwear on their heads and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I caught the bug early, and I kept doing that. And I think my parents realized that this wasn't going away. This was there's a trash truck in the background. Sorry to anybody listening.
Oh, can't hear.
Good. But that was the inception of my obsession with music. And I just kept doing. I started with musical stuff. I just kept doing shows as a kid, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and King of the Oompa Loompas, and all that kind of fun world of musicals. And then I started listening to soul music pretty early on. I was really obsessed with James Brown and Marvin Gaye and Etta James. And so my world was sort of just pop, like NSYNC and Britney Spears and all that, musicals and soul music. And I feel like I just kept doing all those things and writing my own stuff. And that kind of kept bringing me to the place I'm at now, growing up in New York and doing those different things together.
Yeah, so I was about to ask, is that where you grew up? Because you talked about Broadway. You grew up in New York?
Hell's Kitchen, baby, right in the middle of town. My mom been in the same apartment for 40 years, so she she saw a very different Hell's Kitchen, and that's where I grew up. And I would walk to my high school, and it was great, man. I didn't get my driver's license until I was 23, so definitely a diehard New York kid.
Yeah, and lucky for you, your parents must have been Broadway fans if they're taking you to those shows early.
Yeah, they were funny. They're both lawyers, so but my dad was always. I think my dad is a secret ham. He has the bug in him too, but I think his dad sort of just encouraged him more to be a lawyer. But I think that he's always loved the arts and music and everything of that sort. So I'm really grateful that he skipped the generation and actually encouraged me to follow what I love. I'm so grateful for that, because that's not always the case. So yeah, they definitely have the bug too.
I feel like that's such a potent recipe for a pop musician, like Broadway musicals, and then just pop, like you said, some of those TRL classic artists like Britney and NSYNC, and then you throw in a little bit of the dash of the soul music, and then you get Max.
That's it, pretty much, man.
So how'd you go from, dancing on the table in your underwear in front of your parents to developing your own music? Was that in high school? Was that in middle school? Tell me a little bit about the progression from home to maybe getting in front of some people who aren't your family and performing.
Totally. Yeah. I think I started playing around with it more in middle school. I was, clunking away at the piano, making my own little YouTube videos, and the camera's flipped and people think you're a left-handed player and all that kind of stuff. And then, I went to this great camp. It was this place called Frenchwoods that was this sort of performing arts camp. And honestly, that was the first place that I really got some more confidence, where it was other people that were really into music and theater and everything as well. And I had this little community and family, and then I started getting more confident when I met a couple great musicians who I still hang out with to this day, that we made our own little bands at this camp. So it started as just, you meet people that you love, and you do it for whatever, the 100 people at the camp, and then you just keep growing. And it always starts from that place. It has to be from that place. I remember we wrote a song called Reusable. It's like, reusable, recycle, I'm resilient, be fretful. So there's this little middle school band. And then it just kept progressing. I just kept, I dabbled with the acting stuff, but music was just where I felt the most fulfilled. It was the work I could do nonstop and never feel drained, So it was definitely went from that kid in New York to getting a little more confidence, and then just maybe feeling like I could write my own stuff a little more than just doing the covers and everything.
Yeah, it's amazing how we have endless energy for the things we love. So
Preach, amen.
So was piano was that your instrument early on, and then you started tinkering with other things after? What was that kind of your core instrument that you got started on?
Yeah, and I wasn't very good. I just clunked away at getting some melodies, and never really took some lessons, but just didn't have the bug like other friends of mine who really were just virtuosos,
Right.
But then I had one of my best friends who married me at my wedding. She got ordained and all that. We went to Central Park one day, and she was playing ukulele, and I'm a small guy, so guitars were always too big. My mom got me this big Martin as a kid, and she had this ukulele, and we were playing in Central Park, and I got obsessed. I was like, this is my instrument. What am I doing? And there was people were saying it's a toy instrument, but I loved that I could take it anywhere. I could just go anywhere. I could bring it on the plane, and I didn't need to be an insane player. It was more about the songs I was writing, or what I was trying to do lyrically, which was always what I was caring the most about. And it was just sort of the tool to help me portray that.
Yeah, I mean, for our mobile world, that's it's a great sounding instrument. It's on a lot of great tracks for a reason. But you mentioned YouTube. Was that one of the ways that you kind of started gaining momentum, or did you build a YouTube following? Tell us a little bit about how you gained kind of your initial following, because playing some songs about recycling with your friends at camp to billions of streams, there's a lot to connect there. So tell us a little bit about that process.
I think a big theme for me has always just been, something happens, how do I pivot? And at the time when I started really taking music seriously in a way, I put an EP out as a 15-year-old on my own, that kind of stuff. But then I got on Nickelodeon, which was great, and I'm grateful, and I got to play ukulele, and it was all musical based. But I also was on a record label for the first time, and they shelved me. I wasn't allowed to put out my own music. And so because of that, there was one clause where I could put out covers. And so I just started doing a bunch of covers on YouTube, because I knew that all along, and you look back and realize, why didn't I, you always wanted to do the one thing, and you're always looking for ways to do it. And for me, it was music. It was always, I'll do that show on Nickelodeon, I get to do music. Or I'll do this, I get to sing. Maybe more people like my music. And for YouTube, it was a similar thing where I just started doing more covers because that's what I could do, and I wanted to get my style out there. Smart. And then I met my friend Kurt, who has the same last name, Schneider. We're not related, but he became a mentor to me, in that I really loved that he just, in acting, you're just waiting so often on other people to approve of you and then give you the job, and then you do the movie. And I just loved, he taught me with the YouTube world, we're just going to get our crew together. We have a great camera person. We have a great location. We can do it tomorrow. Let's get together tomorrow and do it. And then there was something so intoxicating about having the power to know how to create your own world without waiting on anybody else. That was amazing. And so I just started doing that with him nonstop while I was sort of shelved by this record label and on Nickelodeon. And that I'm so grateful to him, because that really jump-started my mindset, but also getting my style out there with music.
That's such a good point. I've often thought about that, because as a musician myself, I think a lot of times, they say musicians want to be actors and actors want to be musicians. But I often think about, I'll watch an epic, huge movie like Avengers Endgame or something, and just thinking about the hundreds of thousands of hours or whatever it had to go into making that awesome piece of work. But how much time, effort, and waiting, and just patience it takes to make one of those things. And I often think that I love the simplicity of making a 3-minute pop song or something like that, or rock song, or whatever you might be doing. And, theoretically, you could jump in a room with a producer, or even if you're, a DIY kind of person, you could jump in a room and come out with a song in a few hours. And it'll get played, maybe a billion times, like one of Max's songs, and
It's true, man.
yeah. And I love what you said about just how empowering it is to nowadays that we have we got a camera, a recorder in our pocket, HD, 4K even, and you can make a solid piece of content and just throw it up the same day and get instant feedback and instantly get the fulfillment of putting something out into the world.
Totally, man. It's funny. I had this talk with somebody the other day who I've been working with. This amazing artist, and we were talking about just studios and how he's been a bedroom producer for such a long time. All his music has been made in his apartment, and how now he's getting these budgets and he gets to use these studios, and it's great, and that's awesome if that's where you work the best. But I think for me, I actually have the opposite effect. I don't like going to really professional studios. I still work in the converted garage studio that I have, that I've done so many songs with my friends with, because I think that energy, it can be so surgical in certain rooms.
Yeah.
And you can't replace that energy. And the best part of that energy is most everybody can have that. You can create the best music of your life in your tiny New York apartment. And I know we sometimes think once I get that studio, it's going to change everything, but there's almost a magic lost when you get there. It's like you're there and you have the tools, but now the foundation isn't there. So
right.
There's something so empowering in this time where, you can just write a song and maybe it'll never be heard, but in 5 years you can listen to that song again. And maybe there's a spark in it for your next thing, or maybe there's, maybe it's a song for someone else. There's just something so special that you leave a day after writing something and it's there forever in some way or another.
Yeah, I was just talking about that. A friend of mine owns a studio, and thankfully his studio's got a warmth to it. It's got a vibe. But we were talking about how some studios, like you said, surgical. I think we use the word sterile. And so some people, I think that formality inspires them. It's like, all right, it's time to get to business. This is cool. I'm in a cool studio, and it's going to inspire me. It's going to make me focus. But other people, especially if you've developed yourself in a zone where you're comfortable, like a garage or something like that, a studio that you made yourself, there's warmth to that, there's a familiarity, and there's I think it feels safer. There's not as much pressure, so sometimes you're looser. So it sounds like you said, you are the master of the pivot. You're not allowed to put any music out. So instead, fine, I'll put out some covers, and I'll get to kind of leverage some of the stuff I'm doing here and still be able to do music in some capacity over here. So what happened with being shelved? Did you have to wait for a certain amount of years, or did you have to put out a certain amount of time, or did you just get out of that contract, or how did that work?
Yeah, luckily I kind of waited it out, and then they didn't realize that they had not picked up the option in the right amount of time. So I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And then it was done, and then I got out. And so that was definitely purposeful. But, again, because of the following I had built on YouTube, I got noticed by some more places that wanted to put out my original stuff, which was amazing. And so, you really, the thing that you think is just temporary sometimes brings you to the thing you want, which is amazing too, so that was great. I met this management company, and then I met Pete from Fall Out Boy, and I put my first music out from Decadence DCD2 with them, and went on tour with them, and they kind of noticed me via the YouTube covers, and that was really special. I got to meet them, and Pharrell noticed one of my covers that I did of him, so we worked together for a bit, and that was awesome. A dream come true to be in the studio with him, and I got to be with him and watch Stevie Wonder record on his record with Snoop Dogg. It was just like these covers somehow brought me to these people I idolized, and then I'm making music with them. So this thing that I didn't really want to do, I was just doing because I need it out of necessity, ended up being an amazing pathway to work with people I really loved.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like you were curating your future, via your covers. So that's awesome. That's I bet the label's kicking themselves for not putting out your old music.
It's all good. You know how
Yeah,
the game is, and
for
if
sure.
anything, you want to work with the people that get it right away. If you have to convince them, then they're not the right people for you, which is fine too.
Totally. So tell us a little bit about you're dropping the deluxe version of Colour Visions. So it's going to include the original tracks along with some other tracks from 2018. And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, just I felt like I like deluxes because they just kind of put a bow on an era, on an album. And I realized there were so many versions of the songs that didn't really have a home, that were just sort of in the atmosphere. So it was really nice to put Still New York with Joey Badass on, and the song Worship, and then the versions that the new version, the alternate versions, like Love Me Less with Kim Petras, and my friend EJ jumped on a song just because I FaceTimed him one day and I sent him the song. He goes, "I'm obsessed with the song." I was like, "Why don't you do a verse on it? Let's try it out." And that's kind of how all my music works. I just put it out into the atmosphere and then see if someone's into it, and then we just maybe do something together. That's when it's always the best. So the deluxe is just a nice, the 22 track. Here's everything that happened in the last few years. Hope you like these versions. And if you didn't listen to the album originally, maybe you give it a listen.
Yeah, it's what's great about the digital platforms is it's so easy to kind of re-release and kind of give people another opportunity. Hey, if you just got put onto me recently, here's another opportunity. If the new stuff with some of the older stuff. So I mean, you and your new single Blueberry Eyes, you did a remix, and didn't you just perform it on Kelly Clarkson yesterday?
I did. Yeah. It was super fun. It was I'm always, it's the remix thing I love because it keeps adding some new sparks to whatever the song is. And for Lights Down Low is similar. I added my friend Nash to that song, and then we did a Spanish version. We did, I think Lil Nas X saw what I was doing with Old Town Road and just went up to me with the amount of versions. But there's something fun about that, where you just, maybe somebody discovers it because of those versions. So with Blueberry Eyes, similarly, Steve Aoki, who's become a great friend, he's a big fan of BTS as well and has worked with them. So him doing that remix was perfect. And then the version we did on Kelly Clarkson, again, Lil Mosey had Blueberry Fago. So I was like, the Blueberry songs, they gotta come. Who puts out Blueberry songs in a year? We got to come together for this remix. And Olivia, I always wanted a female voice on the song, and she's just been an old friend too, and she sounded amazing. So yeah, we got to do it on Kelly Clarkson for the version. It's been cool.
You've had some fun lately playing shows, because you played Jimmy Kimmel Live and the Today Show and Live with Kelly and Ryan. And how is it? Explain to maybe some indie artists who haven't reached that level yet what it's like playing on some of those shows.
It's really cool. You definitely reach a different audience than you would normally. Maybe more of a not passive, but just an audience that isn't paying as much attention, and it just hits a new sphere, which is cool. I would say never do it for those things, but if you've already put out the song or the album that you've got your heart in, to get those looks is always really cool, to get that extra, those extra ears and eyeballs on it that maybe wouldn't have heard it before. And it's also just, it's definitely a dream with Kimmel. I've been a big fan of Kimmel, so getting to do Love Me Less on there was really cool. And it's just a nice way to see if you can flex creativity. I did Lights Down Low on James Corden, and it was the first TV performance for me, but I wanted to have the harp version, and everybody in my team was like, "Nah, you got to do the original version." And I said, "Well, what's the point? This is a cool opportunity to try something that's new and exciting, and I could just do the regular version, but people have heard it, so this feels like a more special moment that I'll look back on and be glad I took the risk." So if you can take the risk on those kinds of shows, I think that it's a fun thing to look back on and say, look, we put a harp on James Corden. Let's go, baby. That was a great version to try.
Yeah. I have noticed, I don't know if it's more of a modern thing, but I have noticed that a lot of artists seem to be getting more creative now with kind of those late night performances. You got your middle-sized venue kind of shows, which if it's your tour, you may have the opportunity to get pretty creative. But if you're playing smaller venues, you may not have as many opportunities to get creative. So I think, if you get one of those late night shows, it's kind of a cool idea to bring in some extra people, some extra ideas, and really make it count, like you said.
Totally. Yeah. If you're a classic, the Foo Fighters or somebody that's just playing playing the instruments and just being a badass band, that works on its own. But maybe if you're a little more, you're more obsessed with the visual and you feel like that adds to the world.
Right.
If you're able to, it's so fun to make your own little world on a show that people are used to seeing everybody make their own worlds for you. It's your blank canvas that you can create whatever you want for, a different audience to see, which is cool.
Totally. Yeah. For those who are a little more theatric, who might have enjoyed the theater growing up.
There you go. Definitely theatrical. I love that stuff.
And and yeah, like you said, for rockers, that is the theatrics. Rock fans want to see the instruments. They want to see kind of that more organic. They want to see the guitar amps and the guitars and the drummer. But if it's a pop song, you kind of, it's more vocal based. You want to see maybe some dancing, some different lights, some different visuals.
Yeah, totally.
So tell us, you've had crazy success. We were just talking about all the shows that you've been playing, and on Spotify, you've garnered more than 1.5 billion streams, which is crazy. How does that feel? Like, you probably kind of built up to it, so it's not like you woke up one day with a billion streams. But do you ever just think about it and be like, wow, billion streams?
Yeah, I think that it's been a slow burn for me, and it's nice to just look at it and feel a little. When I get insecure, it's nice to feel some validation of maybe I'm doing something right. Just keep, if anything, it's a reminder to keep taking the risks, because I think you keep having people say this is what you need to do to really make it big, and I think that you almost get tricked by it. It doesn't matter what you've done. You listen to those people and you say, maybe I do need to do that. What am I missing? But when you look at maybe what's worked thus far, I was just listening to Andre 3000 on Rick Rubin's podcast and thinking the same thing. If anything, it's just those things hopefully are a reminder that keep being creative and taking the risks you did for those pieces. Don't get stale. Don't think that just because you're at this point or you've done these things, now you can do something that's not as creative or exciting. Those are hopefully just reminders that, yeah, you know what? That's awesome that's happened, but you just have to have the same standard of whatever you do next, and also appreciate that people have appreciated what you've put out this far.
That's a good point. It reminds me of a quote I heard from a musician, and he was talking about the spirit of things, where, like, hey, maybe your last song was a hit. And so some people may say, okay, well, make all your songs sound like that song, because that will duplicate that hit. But what made that song a hit was probably its uniqueness. And if you do another song like that, then it's no longer unique. So you want to think about the spirit of things, and what you just said, the spirit of the creativity. You don't want to lose the creativity and go with something more formulaic. I think the example they used was, hey, you want to play like Jimi Hendrix, but if you play like Jimi Hendrix, you're not going to be as cool as Jimi Hendrix because he was doing something totally original,
Totally.
So
Totally.
So Max, I know you're a busy guy. I know you got a bunch of interviews, so I really appreciate you joining us today. We like to end all our interviews by asking if you had one piece of advice, and you've given us some nuggets already, but if you had one piece of advice for aspiring artists, what would it be?
Relish in the process. The process is sometimes the most amazing thing of your life. Finding that spark for that song. Those things, when you're wanting to get the big thing, sometimes you overlook, but I feel like those are the pieces that will always make you smile more than anything else. So don't overlook them. They're the best.
That's so true. You gotta, if you don't love the process, then you don't love it.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen.
I had a surfing metaphor recently where it's like, hey, if you don't like paddling and duck diving under waves and that sort of thing, then you don't like surfing. Like, surfing isn't only the catching of the wave. It's all that, it's putting on the wetsuits, getting in the water, whatever it may be.
Oh, I love that analogy. It really does. It makes total sense for songwriting. You got to wait for the wave, but don't enjoy the process of what it's like.
Yeah, enjoy that you're out just sitting in the water,
Yes.
having a vacation.
Beautiful.
Bringing it backward.